Just Saying takes on PNC as we wrap up our first initial round robin matches here in the Hearthstone Grandmasters. Each season we have 7 weeks where every player will play against someone else in their 8-player division at twice, and then you'll have a 14-game record, right? It'll be 7-7 or anything that splits across. Just Saying has pretty much wrapped up his first round robin with a very good 6-1 record. If he is able to win here, he starts off his second round robin at 7-1, and just based off of historical performances, 7 wins puts you in an overwhelming position to get to playoffs, because last season a losing record got you to playoffs in certain divisions. So, you know, based off of that precedent, Saying might already be a lock for playoffs.
Yeah, one of those players that qualified for playoffs with a losing record last season was PNC. He was in Division A and I believe qualified with a 6-8 record. He'll be going up against Saying in this next matchup, and keep in mind, PNC won the whole thing last season. But
yeah, but he might get relegated.
He might get relegated. He's at the bottom of the standings now. Last season, he did pick it up around the week 3, week 4 mark. But it seems like he's a little behind his pace from last season, where he's still suffering from some of the same things. He's roping out some turns and not finishing some actions. It seems like he's in this, I know he's not, but it seems like he's in this constant state of rustiness. And of course, he is one of the most open players about some of his mistakes. He always says, for some reason, I still get nervous on these broadcasts. I still get nervous playing in front of a lot of people. I don't want to mess up, and it causes me to make my decisions late, and sometimes I rope out big plays. And that happens. But at this point, you know, we're halfway through Season 2. Even though you're qualified for the Global Finals, it doesn't mean you're immune from relegation. So PNC needs to, you know, pick up that play a little bit and try and make that same run that he did last season and close out his matches with some solid wins, and we're going to start it off with a Priest Mirror.
I mean, if you can't at least avoid relegation, that is something that is on the forefront of every player's mind. It is a storyline that is becoming a reality for some of the players. You look at Fino from Europe at a very abysmal 0-7. That is just a record that is very hard to come back from. Yeah, I'm not going to try to sugarcoat anything. Fino is in some real deep poopy.
Even if he wins out from here, which is very unlikely, he still may miss playoffs in his division.
That's the scary part. It's psychologically, like, by all means, you're halfway through the season. You still have a lot of ground that you can make up.
Yep.
You have a lot of game that you can still have, but there's a lot of ground to make up, so it's very daunting. Either way, that's going to be on the forefront of our minds as we enter this series. Saints going to start things off with a Light Warden on turn 1. Light Warden on 1 is very threatening for a few reasons, but the good news is that there's nothing damaged, so it can't pump up to a 3-2 to challenge things very easily. That being said, injured Tolvir is injured.
I've got more left in me.
Yes, it's injured. That is correct. Just thought I'd fact check you.
Well, so the powered shield here is pretty important, just to keep it alive.
Yeah. Nothing to heal with much relevance, though, which is a slight problem for Saying. When you're going first in this matchup, a lot of times you have the advantage just because you get to play a threat first. But if you're not utilizing that threat to keep board control, then it's often wasted, and you'd rather have had that extra card from going second in the mulligan phase. Because this matchup, obviously, we've seen a ton of it over the first, 3 weeks of play in Grandmasters.
I wonder.
Especially in Game 1, seems like we've seen a Priest Mirror a lot, and it all comes down to the board. If one player takes control of the board, unless you have some really fancy tools in your lineup, like if you're Firebat and have Wild Power Managers and Holy Ripple, then it's going to be really difficult to come back, and it's easy for a Priest to snowball the board position with all buffs there. And this is exactly playing that line. PNC understanding what this matchup is about and just using this topsy-turvy to clear off the board and develop his own.
Yeah, now PNC is ahead on the board. How does Saiyan fight back?
Whew.
It's a tricky situation given that anything that you develop is most likely going to die. So I think Saiyan just has come to terms with the fact that his cleric, sorry, not his cleric, his Light Warden is going to fall here and then rely on Psychopop to pull him back in.
Oof.
It's a great draw.
It is a great draw. The sequencing is a little weird. Just because the Light Warden gains attack, you know, ideally you'd want to be able to value trade over the injured Tolvir once you heal up. Also, you have injured Blademaster, which also benefits a ton from the Neverset Ritualist. So PNC might want to go for a different game plan here and play injured Blademaster, then trade in the Wild Pyromancer, and then next turn can go Narshar Cleric Neverset Ritualist on 2 minions where it's going to gain its full effect.
Yeah, I agree with that. I do think that the greedy play isn't actually as greedy as you might think it is.
Yeah.
Because Injured Blademaster sets you up for even better tempo on the following turn, and your opponent can't really answer very easily. One of the best cards for this class, Priest, is Injured Blademaster, and it's quite ironic that Priest has trouble dealing with it.
Yep.
So now Saiyan has that Psychopomp, but he only has Light Wardens into the mix.
Yep, just 2 copies of Light Warden died for Psychopomp. But Saiyan, you know, he has to understand that this is just a rough situation. If PNC has any follow-up to this injured Blademaster, injured Tolvir, it's going to be bad. And he has a ton. He could trade over this Light Warden to make sure it doesn't gain attack. And then Northshire Cleric Neverset Ritualist even has a Power Shield to back it up. So we draw 2 cards, have 2 massive full health minions on the board with follow-up in Inner Fire. And from that point, it's nearly impossible for Saiyan to come back. Not 100% impossible, nearly impossible.
Yeah, the Ritualist just gains too much tempo. Like, the idea is that you utilize minions to get ahead of the health trade, so that way things like Wild Pyromancer can clean up. You get things to low health, like 1, 2, maybe 3 health maximum. And then you have all these spells to use Wild Pyromancer to clear things off. But this is just so hard to come back from. Full health gain. You can even just look at Saiyan wince.
All right, next game, next game. That's what he seemed like. That's what he was saying.
Yeah.
Saiyan doesn't have any crazy techs in his priest deck. He's running the exact same list that we've seen for the past couple weeks that was made popular by Hunter Ace, with the Bwonsamdi, the Beaming Sidekicks as the 1-drop package, 1 Acolyte, 1 Extra Arms, the 100% standard list of it, which honestly is the best proactive list, but can sometimes be the least reactive list. It's worse in the mirrors when you fall behind.
I wonder if Saiyan has any chance of winning this game. And I think it depends on PNC perhaps messing up. One thing PNC could end up doing is playing a second Northshire Cleric to keep drawing cards. And then Saiyan has Pyromancer with a bajillion draws.
Yeah, that's pretty much Saiyan's only hope. But, all right, Divine Spirit Inner Fire draw picked up.
Yep, so that's... How much damage can he put out maximum here? There's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 power on the board. But if you were to Divine Spirit and Inner Fire,
must consider.
It would put this to a 14-14, and it would put this to a 12-12. Sorry, when I say this, I mean the 2-6 and the 4-7.
Dan's mousing over in our spectator line. That was directed at me. Thank you, Dan.
I actually do think it'd be great if guys could control the mouse to just kind of show like a little visual element of...
They don't trust us.
Yeah, they don't trust us. And yet they let Admirable play the Saviors of Old Doom soundtrack in the background by touching people's toes on the game board.
How dare they?
You didn't see that?
No.
Okay. Well, in Saviors of Old Doom game board, on the this giant statue at the feet.
Yeah, it's like a piano.
Yeah, and the Easter egg is it plays the League of Explorers theme.
Yeah. They let Admirable do it?
Yeah.
That's not fair. That's regional bias.
In the light's name.
Interesting. So Saiyan can win again by burning a bunch of stuff, but that is a very unlikely scenario given that, well, he might just die next turn.
Yeah.
12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21 damage I count next turn. That's not also factoring any heals the Light Warden gets.
Yeah. You heal up injured Tolvir. Attack goes to 12. Light Warden goes to 5, 17, 18, 19, plus 5, 24.
Yeah, I think instead Saiyan's probably just going to go for a bunch of Pyromancer spells. In fact, does he have a board clear here? By doing this?
He does have a board clear except for the injured Tolvir, but that's his whole hand.
He'll do what he can.
Yeah.
It's not pretty.
It's his whole hand, and PNC was able to draw a good amount of cards from that Northshire Cleric that was on board.
Right. And then if he draws Bonsomdi, I think Saiyan has a chance. So I think he found like the 1%er, right? Like he doesn't really win 99% of the time. But if he does end up getting Bonsomdi into the exact cards and his opponent has nothing, I'm not sure if it's 1%. I'm just, of course, estimating to give you the perspective of how one-sided this game has become.
Yeah, I'd probably say less than 1% just because he needs exactly Blom Somdi, and then he pretty much needs exactly Ahmet after that. Because PNC is going to develop this turn, Blom Somdi would likely die, then he'd have to develop 1-drops, which aren't that good.
Right, but the important thing, too, is that he would have to... He has to have PNC not have anything.
Yes.
PNC had to have, like, all spells in his hand.
All spells or minions that didn't really do much on the board. Like if you just played Acolyte this turn and you jam Blom Somdi, Acolyte's not really going to do much on a Blom Somdi board. And Acolyte pain picked up for Saiyan.
Yeah, I think he doesn't really have much choice to hold on to it.
Yeah.
He has to play it onto the board and just draw a little bit deeper into his deck.
Yep.
Because you could also start getting Northshire Cleric into draws. The only thing is that he already had used his Pyromancer as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oof. Oof.
Okay. All right. Well, PNC is a lot deeper into the deck, so this, of course, is a very natural, logical thing to happen.
Yeah.
Oh, he does put Bonsomdi.
Wow.
Okay.
Unfortunately, with Ahmet on the other side of the board, it's going to be tough. He's going to draw. He's played both Light Warden, so double Beaming Psychic, double Northshire Cleric. He can draw cards here if he wants. It's just he's healing up PNC's minions. He can draw a couple cards with a Northshire Cleric and a Circle of Healing. I mean, it might be worth it just because he may never have another opportunity to, but...
Oh. It's that game. 14 plus 4, 18 plus 2 is 20 plus 1 is 21.
It's not quite. Because the maximum attack would be using Divine Spirit on the Acolyte Pain.
You could alternatively try to draw for something. Like you could Divine Spirit the Ahmet, then play Wild Pyromancer and eat like Circle of Healing, and then draw. And just keep going with stuff until you find.
Yeah, no, that
whatever you
seems reasonable. He could pick up extra arms. He could pick up second Inner Fire.
Sure.
Silence already used for Saiyan as well. He does have a Topsy-Turvy, but it's going to be difficult to fight back onto this board.
Okay. Psycho Pop. Maximum tempo. Gets the Pyromancer anyways.
Wow.
Wow. It's a lot of stats on the board. I like the trade just because, again, you don't want to give Saiyan any out to potentially kill you.
Yep. And that should do it.
He can go full North Share.
And then all in on a Tol'Vir.
He can literally draw his entire deck right now if he just circles of healing. Does one circle of healing with the North Shire Clerics.
Oh, wait. Does he have enough mana?
More left in me.
He would need double Divine Spirit
you,
Inner
friend.
Fire. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cards. So he'll have a full hand. Double Divine Spirit Inner Fire. He has a 32/32.
If he ever draws any of his spells. Oh, another circle of healing.
He's already used one Divine Spirit on the Wild Pyromancer, so I don't think there was an out there. PNC also could, if PNC draws a spell, he could kill Saiyan next turn with just fatigue damage because he has Circle of Healing.
Oh,
Wild
you're
Pyromancer
right.
spell plus Circle of Healing
That's cool.
would make him draw how many minions on board?
Too many.
11, 12. So that'd be 12 minions on board, so he could force him to draw 13 cards.
Hey, I got you, friend.
So this is a very complicated board state, and I think what Saiyan's doing is trying to make it so that PNC messes up somehow. There has to be lethal here, right?
So you attack with Acolyte of Pain first into an injured Tol'Vir. I want to go for the fatigue lethal, Dan.
Sure.
I wonder.
Ooh.
Oh,
Oh, I don't know about that one,
Oh,
TJ.
boy.
TJ, I am not sure about playing my own cleric. I do like to draw the Acolyte plan first, though. So the idea is that we have to get past both these 2/8s, and we just have to hit, and we can then use Circle of Healing to fatigue them, right?
yes. Didn't pick up a spell, though.
All we have to do is land this 14 to face somehow.
Yes.
That's easier said than done. He's trading. Saiyan found a way to survive this turn? I feel like there has to be.
Quickly.
He's just going to fully trade on board, I think.
He's out of time. I think he couldn't really figure out like a clean way to get past it. We couldn't figure out a clean way to get past it. We're looking at the deck list, and there's a lot of draws that could have panned either way.
Saiyan had a Wild Pyromancer. He might be able to do some fancy things here, but unfortunately, I just don't think he has enough stuff. He only has 2.
Wait, he can revive it through the Psycho Pump.
Oh, revive Wild Pyromancer with Cycle Pump.
Yes.
I still don't think it's enough.
Wait, Divine Spirit.
Is someone injured?
Oh, okay.
All right.
Instead of cards.
He found lethal.
Yeah. So I'm trying to think what Saiyan's out could have been the turn that he went off. He could have picked up Beaming Sidekick, Divine Spirit, and Inner Fire and forced PNC to trade in like all of his board. Like he would have had a 20/20 injured Tol'Vir in hand.
PNC is the game 1 victor. You know, I do kind of wonder if there was some kind of lethal in the previous turn, and I do wonder if there was some kind of Psycho Pop Wild Pyromancer situation, but I don't think that's the case.
No, because in order to kill off the Amet, which was the most threatening minion,
8.
he would need 8 Pyromancer.
And he died with like what, 4 spells in hand?
Yeah. And that would have been using a Topsy-Turvy. He would have had to get exactly Wild Pyromancer from Cycle Pomp, use a Topsy-Turvy. He had Power Shield, Inner Fire, Divine Spirit, and that's pretty much all he could do. So I don't think there was a way for him to survive. What I want to know if there was a way for PNC to kill Saiyan that turn previously. I think there was.
Think so.
It's very complicated. It would have involved some fatigue with the Northshire Cleric and Circle of Healing. But all he had to do was 1 Circle of Healing on 7 minions because he had 4 cards left in deck. So 3 points of fatigue would have dealt enough so that Amet hitting face would have been lethal.
Yep.
So
I think so. I think
had to
that
be
there's
enough.
definitely a way to do it, but it's easy for us to say, and they're the ones playing. And ultimately, PNC took the safe route. So.
Yes.
Game number 1 in the books, and we're going to take a break, our second break of today. And when we come back, we're going to have the resolution of this best of 3. Stay tuned.
Legends say
Powerful treasures are hidden everywhere here in Aldum.
If we hope to defeat Rafam, we'll need as many as we can get. He's already unleashed the ancient plague lords and countless monsters. Keep them distracted, Reno.
Not a problem. This plan is totally gonna work. Ain't that right, Finley?
Oh, yes! I have them right where I want them.
There is an artifact here. The name is...
The scales of justice. Oh, it must be really fancy.
only to be used in a time of great peril. Yes, I think this qualifies.
Hey, look, Finley. You've lured one of the plague lords.
Take this, fiend!
In the face! Yeah! Hey, guys, get that treasure. We've got a plague lord to destroy.
Yes, please, hurry!
Not to worry, Finley. We just push this thing right here.
No, that's a trap! Watch out!
It's all good. I am totally tired.
Gracious me!
What we actually need to do is press this. And there.
A fish. No, it's the scales of justice.
Oh. Ah, who wants to use it first? Oh, I do. Me. On second thought, maybe give it to Finley?
All you had to do is hold a rope.
Here we go, blaming the tall, ruggedly handsome guy again.
My name is David Chan. In the game, I go by justsaiyan. My username is just kind of a pun, right? But over the years, I think it's grown to mean a lot more to me. Playing Hearthstone for 4 to 5 years, I've probably won like 35,000 games, which means I've lost like 30,000 games. So definitely going back and forth and picking up after every loss. And that's kind of what the anime embodies, right? Is like you lose a fight, you almost die, and then you come back stronger. So being in Grandmasters, especially coming to the summit and everything, it feels like you have just a wide, diverse range of amazing players. And now it's, at least at the start here, it feels like we have a new responsibility to represent Hearthstone, to represent, you know, how fun and competitive that this game can be to the best that we can. So for me, the X factor has to be, I think, just I'm good at finding an edge where other players aren't exactly looking, and then trying to drive as much as I can into that so that I have an even bigger edge at the end of the day. Personal goals for the year: get into the 2 spots from North America to make it to the grand finals this year. I mean, I'm saying this like right after Worlds, but I'm just dying to get back in there, you know?
Game number 2 is Druid versus the Paladin.
Yes!
A matchup that TJ is very enthused for, TJ. Why are you so excited for a Quest Druid, or a Malygos Druid rather, versus OTK Paladin?
I think this is a fun matchup. I think there's like a big game of chicken that happens later on in the game, similar to Holy Wrath Paladin versus Holy Wrath Paladin, but much more intricate and cool because they're different classes. Both players draw a lot of cards. They're trying to assemble this combo. Both players have ways to try and deny the combo from the other player in different types of ways, right? Malygos Druid has heal plus armor gain that they can gain in bursts, whereas Holy Wrath Paladin has timeouts. So it gets crazy at the end. And, you know, I think that players willing to take risks oftentimes are players that can come out on top in matchups like this, especially when both players are playing at such a high level. that they know what to expect from their opponent. When you take risks and do something that's not predicted, it allows you to kind of interrupt the combo from your opponent. So I think it's a very interesting matchup to watch. I enjoy it when it gets to that point. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes one player draws way too aggressively and the other can't keep up. But for the most part, it is, I think, a cool matchup to watch.
Well, that makes one of us. No, I'm just kidding. Of course, I've been playing a lot of Holy Wrath Paladin ever since the comments yesterday from Frozen about how he thinks that this deck has no bad matchups. I decided to put it to the test.
Okay.
Yes.
What are your findings?
And I found that Frozen is mostly correct except for one thing. The bad matchup that Holy Wrath Paladin has is
Hakar.
anybody versus Frodan.
What about Hakar Warrior? Hakar Boomship Warrior. It's really bad.
Yeah, that sounds really bad, but really effective against me. And that does sound like something I would go against in ladder. Because sometimes, TJ, I'm playing next to you as we prepare for our Grandmasters matches where we practice it. And there's just some really obscure things happening that happens to counter me.
Yes.
Right? Like we were playing like no-me decks, and like it was just randomly like the hunter was just playing Hakar, like in his Highlander hunter deck. And it was like the perfect counter. And I was like, how is this happening? Like, why would you have that card in your deck?
You have the perfect combo assembled, and then some guy just plays Spellword Jeweler randomly on ladder.
That's just how it happens.
Yeah.
I can't explain it.
Yep. Love this play from Saiyan to open things up. The Coin Crystal Merchant. Saiyan realizing that this quest is about who can draw cards
Card control.
Yes, the most aggressively. If Saiyan is not worried as much about completing the quest as fast as possible, he's more worried about assembling his combo pieces as fast as possible. Obviously, it's not a matchup where you mulligan the quest. I don't think you ever mulligan the quest.
So good, TJ.
Yes, it is.
This deck is so absurd that even if PNC is able to maximize armor and health counts to 59, because it would get 29 armor and the 30 life, Druid could still easily go way over the top.
Yep.
Because you're never going to really force out Druid to use Moonfires or even their swipes. And so if you're able to get the Omega damage hand, which is you play Malygos and then you play Elise, either of them for really cheap. Preferably, you would play Malygos for cheap. Then you get to play Elise and duplicate your entire hand with Floop twice, which would give you 8 Moonfires, aka 88 damage. It's pretty absurd.
It is. It's absurd, but it can be tough to get to that point because you get to the point at the end of the game where you have all this expensive stuff in your hand that you need to find a way to use because you need to curate your hand so that way at least copies the cards that you need to. Dream Petal Forest hits the Malygos. You're not having to use the Floop early. And having Floop in your hand that keeps getting hit by Dream Petal Forest. Like, there's a lot of ways that the combo can be interrupted or delayed.
Yeah.
The full combo, that is. So hand management and finding opportunities to dump your hand are important. Like Starfall, pretty useless in this matchup, but you have to find a spot to use it oftentimes to get it out of your hand to make sure that you have space to do all this fancy stuff in the late game.
Yep, just like now. I think that was an excellent play from PNC to shut down both the Crystal Merchants, use Subdue in that spot. Here's the thing, though. If PNC gets caught too much in trying to remove the threats from Saiyan, Saiyan could also just win through normal tempo plans because he still has Oasis Surgers. He still has spell damage swipes with War Druid Lodi.
Yep.
And sometimes just the classic mid-range approach is good enough to get there. And, I mean, there's still that one copy of Worthy Expedition that a lot of these decks run. And there's times where I'm like, oh, yeah, I'll just pick Cenarius. Wait, you were so afraid of my combo pieces that you just didn't use your board clear, and then I died, and then you died.
Or you're delaying your card draw. You're trying to deal with this board so much, you're trying to deny their card draw that you ignore your own, which can also be a big detriment because the Druid can complete the combo without drawing their whole deck. They can deal insane amounts of game-ending damage without drawing their entire deck. Obviously, it's easier if they do, but sometimes Elise can be active with 6-7 cards left in deck, Sometimes you drop a Florist early, it hits Malagos. You know, a lot of these things can change the outcome.
Saiyan taking the threat very seriously by removing the Thick Hull so that way he doesn't take too much damage over the Holy Wrath OTK. Now, it is something to consider. Both players also have the opportunity to just kill the other player if they're not careful.
Yep.
In that, if Saiyan takes too much damage, he's going to just constantly be in a threat of the Holy Wrath. So now it comes into a point where this looks like a conventionally great swipe. Your quest is 3 out of 4. There is a very nice amount of spread of health, so that way things die to swipe. But swipe is also one of the most valuable ways to end the game as a combo piece. So it's not as clear cut as you might think, even though by all means this does look like a good swipe.
Yeah.
And I'm finding a hard time to justify not using swipe, given that if you do go for armor, for example, you do end up losing that armor because everyone's going to chip away. And if you use your floop in this spot, you give up even more burst than the swipe.
Yes.
So I personally like utilizing the swipe.
And a lot of variations of the combo don't actually use both swipes.
Right.
And in the iterations that don't, you're going to be releasing the second swipe anyway, right? So you're going to have access to 2 swipes most likely at some point in the game. And this match, you have time. You have time to, like I said, curate your hand to get the combo that works for you. And having 2 copies of swipe, 4 copies of swipe after release is often overkill.
Agreed. I think I like Prismatic Lens first before Crystology. This would be his second Crystology. He still has 2 Novice Engineers and a... Actually, that might be it. Actually, he only has 2 Novice Engineers remaining in his deck. So actually, that might be that might warrant a Crystology first in this position.
Yeah, he's got Kangor in hand.
Yep, he played Thaunos. He's played Acolyte.
Played Elven Archer.
He played Elven Archer. So there's only 2 one-attack minions remaining in the deck. So that would mean that playing Crystology would draw both of them. However, that also makes Prismatic Lens pool a little bit more concentrated before the Shivrala. And the one thing that he doesn't want to do is Prismatic Lens Shivrala into Holy Wrath.
Yeah.
So this is a risk versus reward, and PNC is very aware of it. That's why he's Crystology first. And he's going to cross his fingers. It's not going to happen. It's very unlikely, but it can happen.
Yeah. But I think maximizing card draw is important, and if he Prismatic Lens first and does hit Novice Engineer, sure, he gets a discount on whatever spell he draws most of the time. Right. But 2, he draws 1 less card from Crystology.
Oof. Bad hand here for Saiyan. He's got all the cards he wants at the very literal end of the game. He drew these cards 16 cards too early. It's actually this hand minus the Super Not Defenders is what you want.
Yeah, and what's also awkward about this hand is sometimes when you have a poor hand early, it's beneficial. If you have all your game-ending spells, and you have Florist plus Malagos, you can guarantee Florist on the Malagos, which is going to happen at some point.
Right.
But he drew the Anubisat Defenders, which are the cards that you want to dump as soon as possible because they're usually easy to dump on like a Nourish turn.
Well, you could dump it now.
Blah.
I would use it just because it frees up your hand space. You do end up coming to an issue too where if he has like Nourish and he doesn't have hand space to get everything, then that becomes a problem. Plus, 0 mana 3/5s. That's just never bad. Stop thinking about things in situations that it's bad, TJ. I know you're gonna counterplay. It's never bad. Free stuff is free.
When you have lethal on board and your opponent has a Harbinger Celestia in on the board, then it's bad.
Exactly.
Then it's really bad because then you prevent yourself from getting lethals.
Yeah. If that's the worst case scenario, TJ, I'll take my chances.
Okay.
All right, so now PNC. Does he have a convenient clear here, or does he have to dump the Shrink Ray? I don't think he needs to. But it would be a really convenient use of his mana, because then he can Shrink Ray, Hammer of Wrath, and like play Novice Engineer. He'll end up freeing up his hand space, drawing 2 cards. Another alternative would be to...
Consecration? Hammer of Wrath?
Sure. Consecration Hammer of Wrath also works. Actually, that works pretty nicely, yeah. I like that better. Shrink Ray is just really powerful, so you want to hold on to it, especially for its cheap. because it's cheap.
Yeah.
So I like your consecration play.
It's kind of getting rid of some of the more expensive cards. Shrinker still can't have a ton of value. Haven't seen Oasis Surger. You do want to have removal in your back pocket in case your opponent decides to get cheeky and play Malagos early.
So this is an opportunity for Saiyan to go for a Dream Petal Flourish just to get the mana out of the way, but he pretty much just wants to hit Malagos. You can get away with playing Elise, or getting it on Elise, because then Elise becomes 0 mana, and then you play Malagos, and then Elise copy everything.
Yeah.
Okay, wow.
Nice. Yeah, the Elise actually is not too bad, as you mentioned, because it allows you to burst the combo in one, and just with Moonfires in a single turn.
Well, yeah, but now Saiyan, how much damage does he have next turn?
14 plus 11, 25. If this Dream Petal Force is not removed, 29.
I hope you like my invention.
Dream Petal Force will die, but he's gonna if he swings with the weapon, he takes 4 damage, gains 2.
So he'd be at exactly 25.
TJ,
What?
if PNC doesn't heal,
He has 14 cards left in his deck.
he needs to do something as very subtle, which is to play Crystal Smith Kangor and then swing. Then he'll be alive. From what we see.
Oh my goodness.
That has to, but the thing is,
If he
Saiyan's
picks up a
been
pounce, he can pick up a pounce.
He can pick up a pounce, he can pick up another Moonfire, but Saiyan also has been not playing a lot of cards. He's been very inactive. And this is a Druid deck that's dedicated to drawing cards and comboing. At the very least, Saiyan should be like playing Oasis.
No.
Is PNC just dead?
Let me count it again. Malagos plus Floop.
Oh, he flew 2 mana.
Plus 10 spell power.
yeah.
Then Innervate.
Saiyan's
Swipe,
like, I do
Moonfire.
not-
Exactly 25.
Saiyan's like, this is sick. Saiyan's like, this is too much. I can't believe I have it. He's got Malagos, Floop.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yes. Yes, PNC is dead.
Oh my goodness.
Told you. This deck is silly sometimes, but more importantly, PNC had clues. He didn't have the hard read available to him. I don't blame him for being more conservative, but at the same time, a lot of the hints were there, right? He's holding 5 to 6 cards, and yet he's playing only the right side of his hand.
There are
He literally floated like a turn 6 or 7 where he just didn't do anything.
yes, but there are a lot of cards that you hold in your hand. He's not going to use Innervates. He's not going to use Pounce because of no reason. He's not going to use Moonfires. He's not going to use Malagos unless he's going for lethal.
He just played Florist, TJ.
All right. The clues were there, but they were...
When John Stockton throws it up in the air and Karl Malone is waiting, and Dream Petal Florist is John Stockton in this analogy. This is a sports ball reference, by the way.
Okay.
And Karl Malone's just right there. He's like, I don't think anybody is wondering how the heck, like, we could have never expected this. That is what Dream Petal Florist's job is to do, which is set up the oop, the alley, and then Malagos just dunks it in.
Yeah, at the same time, though, Saiyan was going into 9 mana. So he would have had to have Innervate.
So, what cards do they like to hold, TJ? Tell me again.
Malagos, Innervate, Moonfire, Swipe.
Those are the cards you want. Now, one swipe was used. Again, like I said, again, I'm on PNC side here. I feel like it's a very unlikely scenario.
Yeah.
But he also had so many good tools. And also, he's so far ahead of the card draw that there was no rush. Part of the danger that you fall into an OTK or a combo deck mirror of some sort, like it's not necessarily the Paladin versus Paladin, but Paladin versus Druid, is that you have to kind of evaluate the clock, how many turns that you have, and it's largely predicated upon how deep they are into the deck. That's usually a good indicator of it. The only thing is that Paladin has to get to the bottom, and Druid does not.
Yeah.
And so when you're 5 cards ahead of your opponent, because it was 9 versus 14 at that stage, I think you're still in a good spot there as Paladin, right? Where like he didn't have to even time out. All he'd do was play Crystal Smith Kangor, dump a little bit of his hand, and he would have been safe.
Okay, I agree with you. I think if it needed more of a reaction, like if you had a timeout there to prevent it.
Yeah, timeout there I think is unreasonable.
Unreasonable.
I think it's
absolutely
poor play.
unreasonable. Yeah. Going for something that would interrupt your game plan and your curve, sure, unreasonable. But I guess Crystal Smith Kangor is not all that unreasonable considering Saiyan's hand. So, you know what?
That's the only thing that I say PNC could have improved his percentages for that spot by a few percentage points. Some may be able to argue more, given the context clues and using some probability distribution. But all I'm saying is that PNC got punished heavily because now, instead of potentially winning that game and winning that series 2-0, he's staring down a Northshire Cleric on 1 in a matchup where he does not want to give the opponent any card draw, and there's only one window of opportunity for the Priest to usually get in all the damage. In the late stage of the game, Paladin locks Priest out completely. They can never secure the board, and even if they do get the board, they use timeout, and you get the combo.
Whoa.
Yeah, that is...
Dan, this is
very good.
This is 4 cards.
At least.
I must consider.
Wild Pyromancer, Coin, Northshire Cleric, Circle of Healing.
Like to play with fire?
He's going to take it slow because he knows that there's nothing that can really punish him here. Well, Subdue
Sort
can.
of, yeah. Subdue is a miniature punish. But at the same time, Saiyan has a contingency plan around that. He has Beaming Sidekick, he has Power Word Shield. Even if he had, more arms, like that's like other ways for you to do the same exact thing. The only reason why PNC or Saiyan would hesitate from that is because of the threat of the turn 4.
Yes.
And so this is a really good recognition from Saiyan, is that turn 4 is when a lot of the good Paladin tools unlock. Consecration gets online, Choose of a Champion becomes available.
Hammer of Wrath.
Hammer of Wrath. Turn 3 is a very awkward stage. In fact, I'll just say this straight up. The odd mana costs are usually the hardest for this Paladin deck to deal with. It's usually turn 3, it's usually turn 5, it's usually turn 7.
Yes.
After that, 1 and 9, of course, are arguably awkward as well. But
Christology makes up for that.
Christology makes up for that.
Yeah.
3, 5, 7 tends to be the really awkward junctures. You should really pressure the Paladin at those spots.
And Subdue,
if you're an aggressive deck.
Subdue is also just a pretty necessary piece of removal a lot of times.
Yep.
I understand PNC's reasoning for it. My head went to that first. He plays a Pyromancer. He has a Northshire Cleric on board.
Yeah.
You try and deny.
Yeah, it makes sense, because this looks like, to me, like a setup for Saiyan to utilize, like, Injured Blade Master, Injured Tolvir, but this is silly.
Oh my,
he can draw a full hand. He can coin into Northshire Cleric and Circle. He can do anything he wants.
Yeah. It's how many cards does he want? If he injured Tolvirs, then coin Northshire Cleric, Circle of Healing, there'd be 4 damage minions on board. He'd draw 8 cards and would have
a full hand.
He'd actually have 9, so that'd work out perfectly, right? Because he's spending his entire hand in order to do that.
You're right. He's 1 spot missing.
That is literally perfect.
Is someone injured?
It doesn't matter if most of this gets cleared off with a consecration. Yeah, PNC feeling the wrath of Northshire Cleric. Saiyan draws another Circle Feeling, doesn't need that. Perfect hand size, massive board. Pressure Gigante. And now PNC doesn't even have the consecration. He probably has to start going into crisis mode already, which is you draw cards and hope that they don't have it. That is usually what Holy Wrath Paladin, the position that they can get to. So the Prismatic Lens, first of all, probably has to draw into the timeout because he's going to have to play it relatively soon.
Yep.
And then I would say that it would have to swap places with like an Elven Archer for him to be able to squeeze into type of plays. Because he does have card draw in the hand, which is good. Another alternative is that, the other card that he wants is Wild Pyromancer, because he does have spells, so he needs to clear everything. So those are some hits that he can have. Wild Pyromancer, AoE, clear, like Consecration, and Shrink Ray, and Timeout. Those are the cards he's looking for.
He can take...
quickly.
Okay, so that's actually another awkward thing, is that if he ends up drawing like Holy Wrath for 1, Is there a way for him to get that 25 off? No, because Cheval's too expensive.
Cheval is 18 right now, so he needs a few turns. Now, granted, Sand's only on 4 mana, so his ability to capitalize here on this board still limited for another turn or two. But PNC also has less room to react because he has less mana.
Yeah.
So Saiyan can honestly go in here and put a clock on. If he wants to make a 12-12 here, he can. He could even make it larger, but it would be at the expense of burning cards from his deck, which I don't think he wants to do if he's Circle of Healing.
Yeah, I think right now Saiyan, well, one, he wants to dump a card from his hand. He doesn't want
Yeah.
to burn something valuable like a Divine Spirit or Inner Fire. The second thing is that he can't heal a minion without drawing cards.
Yeah.
So he might have to dump a little bit. Maybe this is just play Injured Blade Master. He is coming up on the awkward turn because if the opponent did play, if his opponent did end up playing something like a Shrink Ray, he might be able to draw a Silence. Silence is Injured Blade Master and go for the kill.
Yeah.
But no such thing is happening here for PNC.
I mean, what do you even do in this situation? There's not even the ability for him to kind of cheese a win with Holy Wraths because Cheval is in hand. And cheesing a win with Holy Wrath would be like Holy Wrathing for 25 with Chevala and then Holy Wrathing again for Shrink Ray.
Okay, so Flash of Light has to hit the Pyromancer. This deck needs to just clear, well, it usually wants to clear one time very convincingly, and then it can usually use spot removal to pick apart the board afterwards, and then you have to wait for the Bwonsamdi reload. Saiyan already cut through a lot of that anticipation because now he's going to be able to set up 3 waves of threats. So it'll be, this is the first wave, the second wave is the reload, and then he has Bwonsamdi in the hand.
Yeah, Bwonsamdi is pretty much just Bwonsamdi. Because he has drawn all of his 1-drops. Every single one. But a 7/7 is still threatening because it's still 7 health, right? That's pretty much the factor that you're looking at is how much health is on board.
Well, that's gotta be it, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of Damahe. That is gonna be the game of the series. Saiyan with a big comeback. 2-1 over PNC. Improves to 7-1, and PNC's descent closer to the 8th place relegation spot continues.
Yeah, rough couple of games. I think that last game, there wasn't much he could have done. There's argument for game 2 of how much you're supposed to predict that. Yep. Game 3 obviously is, just a victory lap for Saiyan.
Game 3 is a continuation of the punish from game 2.
It was. It really was. But, how big of a punish was it? Like, how much can you predict that? There's a lot of argument that can be made there. Like, how much resources, right? There's so much debate back and forth, especially we can see both hands.
Yeah, we know the hands. That's why we can definitively say he should be doing X.
Yes.
But that's from a theoretical perspective. What can he actually be doing in a practical perspective? We'll find out. Let's go ahead and check in with Just Saiyan, who is 7-1 after 4 weeks of play. Saiyan, you there?
Hey guys, how's it going?
It's going all right. So you end the week on top of your division, on top of Americas, and basically
on top of the world.
At worst, tied for the best record in Grandmasters with Hunter Race taking his first loss today. What do you think, Saiyan? What do you have to say for yourself?
Close series. I don't know. It seemed like I shouldn't have won that one. I feel like I kind of escaped death there.
Yes. We evaluated the hand of PNC, and you were really far behind in the draw in game 2, and he had like pretty much the ideal setup for it with a bunch of stuff, and just kind of stole one there.
Yeah.
The 25. Yeah, nothing really much to say about it. I feel like game 3 was like the continuation punish, right? Like, doesn't that feel like that happens sometimes when Hearthstone's like, you lose and you should feel bad for losing, and like here's more like terrible draws and bad games for you to just like feel worse about your defeat that just happened.
Well, what happened in game 2, right? Because I cheesed game 2. I don't know if he like had bottom 2 like double Holy Light, but I know he drew the Kangors, right? Because
Kangor,
double
yeah.
histology.
Yeah, he could have survived with Kangor, but
he even hero power at the end, right?
He didn't even hero power at the end, so it's not like his play would have changed. but I guess he thought that he was okay.
I mean, Saiyan had the exact 5 cards needed.
I mean,
but he did play Florist. He played Florist the turn before, and
Yeah.
that was my argument. Where it's if you're playing Florist and your opponent's been holding 6 cards the entire game, there's got to be some inkling of okay, he's trying to at least set up something.
Mm-hmm.
He's not gonna floop his not floop, Florist his Oasis Surger. That's not really a thing.
Yeah.
That's my argument against it. I'm sure you have a lot of thoughts, saying. Welcome to our casting circle. So let's talk a little bit about the Malagos Druid. We got a chance to sit down with you yesterday, and we got a chance to sit down with some of the other players. Is this just the build that Druids are gravitating towards now? It feels like all the games on ladders against Malagos Druid too.
It's probably the flavor of the week, I think. It's not that strong. I mean, it's still Quest Druid. It's powerful, right? But we just felt like the matchups for GM, it was doing well because a lot of people were even cutting Druid from their lineup, right? They're like, this doesn't play well because everyone's going to play Priest first and things like that. And we wanted our Druid to have a more polarizing matchup spread. And this beats Holy Wrath Paladin, as you saw in Game 2. It's pretty good against Warrior and things like that. So we were expecting more control-oriented stuff, and the anti-control just locks it in, right? Sometimes Warrior gets there. I was watching Europe, and Casper had a very, very close final game against Woods, I think. And I think it could have gone either way there just based on the final brawl. But we don't have to deal with that because Malagos deals 80. So
True that.
80.
That.
60 something, 58. Well,
No.
80 might be a bit of an exaggeration.
No, 80.
Got it.
88. You can do 88.
There's
We
been
could do 88, yeah.
Why stop there, TJ? Just keep going. Just keep going higher.
I
numbers.
don't think you can get higher than that. Oh, no, you can. If your Dream Petal Force sticks on the board.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
No, you can. You can
You get
definitely
Malagos
get higher
for
than that.
0, and you get Elise for 0.
Yeah. I have a question for Saiyan. It seems like, at least in America's Grandmasters, because we have a tendency to go more towards Holy Wrath Paladin in other regions, it feels like we're in a combo meta right now, or at least moving towards it. How do you feel about that? Do you like playing in a combo meta? Do you think that we're going to see more different, greedier combo decks come up because we're in a combo meta? What are your thoughts on that?
I think the combo meta, especially let's say Holy Wrath Paladin, in previous metas you had to deal with Thekal and the breakpoints that can make. You can deal with True Silver, things like that, and oftentimes they wouldn't be able to do 30 in an exact turn. But now that Zephyrus is in the game, they can easily do 32 to 33, I believe, right? So it almost feels like there's no back and forth between hitting the fatigue first and using timeouts at the right time and all of that. It's more whoever draws faster is going to win because Zephyrus just pushes you over 30 anyway, most of the time, right? So outside of Thekal, a lot of these combo decks feel like it's just draw oriented because Zephyrus is at the bottom of your combo deck and just adds too much damage to play around. So it's no longer an objective of figuring out how to toe around your opponent's damage range. It's simply just draw faster than your opponent, and that's it.
So
Until you go against
fast?
Strife Crow, who's playing Mech Paladin and Aggro Warrior.
How fast can we go?
Oh, I'm fast as anyone else.
No, we need.
Answer included.
First off, thanks for an insight into your personal life. We appreciate it. Second off, what decks can go even faster?
Are you asking me to list what's the fastest combo deck or what?
Yes.
Probably the Druid when it draws Nourish, and then probably Holy Wrath.
Okay.
I will say the Warlock is probably the slowest. So if you're trying
Really?
to play in the combo meta, probably not the Quest Warlock. That
Well-
one seems to take forever.
Dan and I were playing. It was Mech Paladin versus Warrior, and Dan was decking out with Mech Paladin.
Yeah, you're
on
forgetting.
on turn. He decked out on turn 10.
You're also forgetting one of the best combo decks in the game, Murloc Paladin, that tips the scales and decks out by turn 6.
Is that a combo deck?
It's a
Can we
good
lump that
combo.
in with
Oh
combo?
yeah, Prismatic Lens and Tip the Scales is a true combo.
Okay. All right.
All right,
I'll-
thanks for joining us.
I'll allow it.
For this impromptu episode of The Curve with me, your host, where we talk about topics on Curve. See you later, Say. Congrats on your victory.
Thanks for having me, guys.
All right, coming up next, we got to chuck through. This is a long day of broadcast.
It is. I apologize. I derailed that one. I didn't get any interviews yesterday.
Yeah, shut up, TJ.
I had to just unload it all in the first one.
All right.